In 1950, Britain hanged a man for strangling his wife and his baby daughter. The chief witness against him, the man whose word put the rope around his neck, was the real killer. He lived one floor below the accused. A respectable man, a former police officer. And while he stood in the witness box and helped send an innocent neighbor to the gallows, he had bodies hidden in his own walls. The archive never closes. Tonight's file, the Crown against Timothy John Evans, 10 Rillington Place. Hold one question, counsel, and do not let it go. Every other file in this archive ends, however late, with a chance to put things right. A man walks free, a verdict is overturned. But how do you give a verdict back to a man you have already hanged? That is the question this case forced upon a nation. And the answer changed the law of England.
Timothy John Evans, 25 years old, a Welsh lorry driver living in London. He could barely read. His speech was halting, his memory poor, his understanding, every doctor agreed, well below that of an ordinary man. He was, in every account, easily led, easily frightened, and easily confused. He lived on the top floor of 10 Rillington Place in Notting Hill, a decaying house, split into cramped flats, sharing one lavatory and a scrap of garden. With him lived his young wife Beryl and their baby daughter Geraldine. Beryl was pregnant again and frightened. They had no money and no room. She did not want the child. On the ground floor lived a quiet, balding man in his 50s, John Reginald Halliday Christie. A former special constable during the war, softly spoken, respectable, trusted by all his neighbors. He offered to help Beryl end her pregnancy. He said he had medical knowledge. The Evanses believed him.
Fix that man in your mind, counsel. Respectable, trusted, a former officer of the law. Every quality that a court instinctively believes. And every one of them, in this case, was a weapon. The most dangerous witness in any courtroom is not the liar who looks like a liar. It is the murderer who looks like a magistrate.
In November 1949, Beryl Evans and baby Geraldine vanished. Christie told Evans that the abortion had gone wrong, that Beryl was dead, and that he, Evans, would be blamed. He told him to disappear. Evans, terrified and out of his depth, sold his furniture and fled to Wales. But Evans could not carry it. He walked into a police station in Wales and confessed to disposing of his wife's body. Then he told a different story. Then another. The accounts did not match. The bodies of Beryl and Geraldine were found at Rillington Place, both strangled. And Timothy Evans, who could barely read the statements he was signing, was charged with the murder of his own child.
Consider what the police now had, counsel. A confession, several, in fact, contradicting each other. 2 bodies. A frightened, stammering man of low intelligence. It looked complete. But a confession from a man like Evans is the least reliable evidence in the whole of the law. He would agree to almost anything a confident officer put to him. He was built to confess.
The trial opened at the Old Bailey in January 1950. Evans was tried only for the murder of his daughter Geraldine. And by now, his story had changed once more into the truth. He accused Christie. He said the downstairs neighbor had done it. It was, as it happens, correct.
And so John Christie was called to the witness box. Not as a suspect, as a witness for the Crown. The quiet, respectable ex-policeman stood before the jury and calmly denied everything. The murderer testified against the innocent man, and the jury believed the murderer. because he looked like the kind of man juries believe.
And on the evidence before them, Thorne, the jury were not fools. They had a man who confessed, who fled, who lied and lied again and changed his account with every telling. Against him, a decorated former constable with an unblemished record. On what was known that day, the verdict was reasonable. That is the horror of it.
Yes, that is exactly the horror of it. Not that the system was corrupt, but that it worked precisely as designed and still killed an innocent man. The jury weighed a liar against a gentleman and chose the gentleman. Any 12 reasonable people might have done the same, which is the most frightening sentence I can say to you, counsel, because it means it can happen again.
The jury took 40 minutes. Guilty. Timothy Evans was sentenced to death. His appeal was dismissed. A petition for reprieve was refused. On the 9th of March, 1950, he was hanged at Pentonville Prison, still insisting that Christie had done it.
And there, counsel, in every other century, the file would close. A guilty man, justly punished, the record tidy. The witnesses believed, the neighbor thanked for his public spirit. Timothy Evans would have gone down in the books as a man who strangled his own baby daughter. Except that the man who killed her could not stop.
3 years passed. In March 1953, Christie moved out of 10 Rillington Place and vanished. A new tenant, cleaning the kitchen, stripped away wallpaper to fix a bracket and found a hidden alcove. Inside were 3 bodies. The police tore the house apart. More bodies in the walls, a body beneath the floorboards, 2 more buried in the small garden, 1 propped up to hold a fence. John Christie had murdered at least 8 people, his own wife Ethel among them. He had been killing for years, before and after Evans was hanged.
And Christie, arrested at last, confessed. Among his confessions was one that reached back across 3 years and 1 hanged man. He admitted that he had killed Beryl Evans, the wife whose murder had helped convict Timothy Evans of killing their child. The star witness for the Crown had, all along, been the murderer the defense had named from the dock.
John Christie was tried, convicted, and hanged in July 1953. But his conviction created an unbearable problem for the state. For if Christie had killed Beryl Evans, then the case against Timothy Evans, already dead 3 years, had rested on the word of the true murderer.
And now watch what the state did, counsel, because it is the most human and the most cowardly reflex there is. It did not want to have hanged an innocent man. So the first official inquiry, held in haste, concluded that Evans had probably killed his wife and child after all, that the house at Rillington Place had simply, improbably, contained 2 stranglers at once. It was a whitewash, and for a time it held.
And you will not let them have it, will you, Thorne? A government that admits it has killed an innocent man admits that the rope itself is a mistake. No state surrenders that easily. They did not lie to protect Christie. They lied to protect the gallows.
Yes, and it did not hold forever. Journalists, lawyers, one determined writer kept the case alive for a decade. The evidence against the whitewash grew until it could not be borne. A second inquiry in 1966 at last reached the truth the doc had shouted 16 years earlier. Timothy Evans had not murdered his daughter. The man Britain hanged was innocent. Counsel, the verdict of history.
In October 1966, Timothy Evans was granted a free pardon. His body was moved from the unmarked prison ground to a proper grave. It was the closest thing the law could offer. A pardon for a man 16 years dead for a crime he had never committed.
And there, counsel, is the answer to the question I gave you at the start. How do you return a verdict to a man you have hanged? You cannot. A pardon frees a prisoner. It cannot raise the dead. Everything the state did for Timothy Evans after 1953 was addressed to a grave. The single, unanswerable feature of the death penalty is this. It is the one sentence from which no appeal can ever recall you.
The Evans case became one of the most powerful arguments in the campaign against hanging. In 1965, Parliament suspended the death penalty for murder. Within a few years, it was gone for good. The rope that killed Timothy Evans helped, in the end, to abolish the rope.
I have read this file more times than I can defend. And what stays with me is not Christie, who was simply a monster, nor even the Whitewash, which was only fear wearing a wig. It is the jury. 12 honest people, doing their duty carefully, believing the respectable man over the frightened one, and being wrong in a way that could never, ever be undone. They were not careless, they were human. And the law had handed human beings a punishment that leaves no room to be human. No room, that is, to be wrong. The law is what we wrote. Justice is what we wanted. I am condemned to read the difference, one case at a time. Next week's file returns to the gallery of verdicts, a duke, a debt, and a duel fought with the law itself, where the loser paid with a fortune and the winner paid with his name. Take a seat, counsel. If you would like to study the evidence the way counsel does, the case brief is in the description. And tell me your verdict below. Filed, never forgotten.